Now, if you're watching football on Saturday, you might spot white ribbons. Yep, Saturday is White Ribbon Day, and it's a campaign to end violence against women and girls. A warning, some viewers may find some of what we're about to discuss distressing. Well, our reporter Eleanor Roper is here to give us more. So I've just touched on it there, but just explain what the White Ribbon campaign is all about, Eleanor.
Well, White Ribbon UK are the leading charity here in the UK working to tackle violence, as you say, against women and girls. And as well as violence, they're looking at some of the root causes behind that. So maybe long-held beliefs, deep-rooted thoughts that people have that they say feed into inequalities here in the UK. And that's where their work starts, at trying to tackle some of those beliefs, particularly among young people. So speaking to boys, I guess before it gets to a point of violence. So we've been hearing from lots of people this week, looking ahead to this White Ribbon Day on Saturday. We can bring you some pictures now of the Wales team actually on Tuesday night. You'll see ahead of their game, and they're going to head off the team bus now, and they're all wearing white ribbons on their tracksuits, showing their support for the campaign. And we've been hearing a bit from the charity about what their work does, what we can all do to help, and also hearing from some of those affected. One of them is Emma. We can hear from her now. She has first-hand experience of domestic abuse at the hands of her ex-partner. Here she is now.
He was a big Fulham fan, and he just loved going out and watching the game. According to him, it's what you did with the lads. But for me, it was just another time of fear, because I knew it was fuelled with cocaine and alcohol, and I would always bear the brunt of his bad moods when he got home. He would say it was his excuse, and the next day he would be apologetic and say it was, because he drank too much, or it was because his team lost football. But the reality is nothing like that causes domestic abuse. It is all about power and control.
That's Emma's experience there. What about the other charities? I gather you've heard from, or we've heard from, a lot of them.
Yes, we've heard from White Ribbon, and we'll get on to them in a moment, but we've also been hearing from Women's Aid, getting advice from them and trying to get an idea how big a problem this is and all of the things that we can do to help. I think their main message to us this week was that actually, if you're silent, you're complicit. And obviously it's got to be safe to do so, but if you hear things you're uncomfortable with, if you see things you're not comfortable with, please act in a safe way. That was their message. Let's hear from Women's Aid now.
As we've worked on our domestic abuse and football campaign, big international tournaments like the World Cup and the Euros have been key moments. So while domestic abuse isn't caused by football, what we have found is that you get a rise where existing abuse is already happening, and that can be up to 38%. With a big game. And I know from going into refuges within our network that women have told me that they are too scared to have the TV on during major international tournaments, because it's so triggering for the women and some of the children there, because where they've lived with domestic abuse, they've lived with somebody perpetrating abuse against them, when they come back after watching football, that's the time where things can become so much worse. So that's why it's really important for us to engage with football and work in a positive way to help raise awareness, and also how to get support.
Now, Eleanor, this was supposed to be a joyous scene. We all know that in the end, this scene was overshadowed. So how does the White Ribbon campaign relate to this?
I think because it's not just about violence, it's also about deep-rooted beliefs that we have about women and about misogyny in all walks of life. This was a great example of that, what happened to Jenny Hermoso after, the kiss that followed that World Cup win. And so obviously, while unpleasant, lots of charities this week have been saying how it's actually proved a really, really important moment, in that it's provoked this huge debate about consent, about behaviour, what's appropriate, what isn't, and it's led us all to have this discussion, and what is a really, really important discussion. So we can hear now from Stephanie Hilborne, who's the CEO of Women in Sport.
It was gutting for the Spanish team to not be able to just be joyful in response to winning the World Cup. But it wasn't necessarily fully undermining, because what it did was open let the world see what those women had been dealing with. And largely they were being still treated like children rather than adults, even though they were adults and they had just won the highest prize of all. And this culture of infantilizing women and also misogyny is so deeply rooted in some of the institutions, particularly in football, but some other parts of sport, that incident has just lifted the lid on it. And now we are in a better position to deal with it. So whether it's long-term damaging, or actually whether in the longer term this is helpful to our cause, is yet to be seen. I think it could be helpful.
So, Eleanor, clearly us men are the issue. So in practical terms, what can we do to make things better?
I think it's about what we can all do, not just men, but it's about opening up the conversation, chatting to one another, educating ourselves on inequality, trying to learn more about it, but also speaking to women, asking the women you know about the kind of things that they do or they experience, concerns that they might have, and listening to what they have to say. I know White Ribbon have said to us this week, ask the women in your lives about their experiences, listen to what they have to say, because you might be surprised at some of the answers.
Eleanor Roper, thank you very much for bringing that and putting it into some sort of context. Thank you. So, of course, if you've been affected by any of the things we've mentioned today, then there is more help and support available. Visit sky.com/viewer support, where there's information from Women's Aid or Refuge, which can provide more support too.